Welcome to another episode of The Chozen Gem. I'm your host, O.D. Williams, and the topic of discussion is navigating success, relationship, and wellness. Let me start by saying that anything discussed on here is to educate, motivate, and most importantly, elevate your mindset. So last time we was on, I introduced you guys to the new segment within the Chozen Gem called H.U.M.B.L.E. And H.U.M.B.L.E is just going to be kind of a life lesson, a life story of myself along the way, different points to educate and help others out there any way that I can, and also provide your inspiration, your motivation, and just that drive to be a better version of yourself. So last time we was on, I was talking and sharing with you guys a little bit about my earlier years living in Enterprise and moving to the New Brockton area. Now on this next segment, I'm going to talk more about my transitioning from New Brockton to Montgomery, Alabama. So being in Montgomery, Alabama, around that time I was in the 5th grade. So it was a new beginning for me, a new area, bigger town, with so many other different things that could provide distractions, but again, I was able to stay out of trouble and not really do things that would get me in trouble. But I'm extremely grateful for that time being there. At the time, I went to a school called Von Rowe Elementary. Met quite a few friends, a lot of people that I was able to, and to this day, I still, I'm still cool with or I talk to. It was a pretty interesting time of my life because, again, this was a different atmosphere, a different audience of people who, grew up in a different area. They had, resources and things that I didn't have, or, vice versa. But in this time, it was very, very interesting. I enjoyed it, but it was quite times where I seen things that I didn't want to see, or heard about things that I didn't want to hear about. Because again, for those of you who don't really know much about Montgomery, Alabama, I mean, it's a bigger city, crime rate a bit higher, but again, it was a time of my life that I had to go through and experience, and that made me who I am today. So, like I mentioned to you guys, football was one of those things that kept me grounded. And this point in my life, I didn't get to really play much of football. It was just a lot of time spent of, regrouping, because for my mom, after her divorce, that's pretty much when we moved to Montgomery. So it was really a time of our lives to where we were kind of trying to get back acquainted to your average daily life. It was so difficult at the time, so much change, so many things that we had to get used to, and just a time of rebuilding. It was really challenging for my mom, because she was trying to get back on her feet. And, as kids, or me and my brother, me being the older brother, just trying to be there for her, be there for myself, and just, again, get acquainted with a new atmosphere. I made quite a few friends. Some of those friends were, pretty positive friends, and some of them didn't make as best choices. But again, through that, I'm just grateful that God was able to protect me along the way, because I was around there in different situations to where it could have went south, but I was able to eliminate myself from that situation. And by all means, I take no credit for that. Again, I give praise to the Most High God, because man, there's times I look back and I'm like, man, that could have definitely went wrong. Never was someone that stole or partake in like gang violence or anything like that. It's just me being a typical kid, teenager, doing things that teenagers do. But again, being in Montgomery, it did show me a side of the things that could have happened and the things that didn't happen. Because again, you would hear about shootings, gang violence and drugs, and I was exposed to a lot of those different things, but I was able to be headstrong and stay focused on not partaking in those things, and more so just enjoying life and having fun, playing basketball, pick up basketball, football, things like that, instead of going and, robbing the local store down the street, and things like that. I knew that that's not the life that I wanted, so I never really partook in those different things. So a lot of that time was idle time, which isn't as good as time that we would want to spend. But again, I knew what the mission was. I knew what I wanted to accomplish. And for me, one of the goals, if I didn't share this with you guys earlier, one of my goals was just to go to the NFL. I always had dreams and aspirations of going to the NFL. And I did almost everything that I thought in my mind would possibly help me get there. But again, like I said, the time that I spent in Montgomery in my earlier years, I didn't get to play any sports. It was just a time of me figuring myself out in a season that I was in. So, up until the 6th grade, I stayed in Montgomery. And then after that, I moved to Andalusia, Alabama, my hometown. I moved back to Andalusia, Alabama. This was another situation on my mom, moving to another atmosphere in another location, because again, like I mentioned, my mom was military, so she was so accustomed to moving around and going to different places. And I was left with having to deal with those different things. But through it all, through that journey, it made me who I am now today, and it allowed me to meet different individuals that, to this day I still have connections with, that I talk with. But moving to Andalusia was a time of me being able to be around my family. Some of my family I didn't get to grow up with, cousins, grandparents, things like that. So I really did enjoy that, because again, I went from to Enterprise, where it was a decent sized city, to Montgomery, where it's a bigger city, and then Andalusia is a small town. So being in Andalusia, it slowed things down a little bit more. I was able to spend time with my family and know more about my side of the family, my mother's side of the family. So it was pretty good. I did enjoy it. I did things like riding horses, going to shoot basketball, the things outside of what I would always do as far as the athletic perspective. But this time was a time where I was able to kind of get back into football, because at the time I was in 7th grade, started playing football for Andalusia Middle School. And this was different for me, because through my stages of playing football, and a lot of you guys who are athletes, as you go from your little leagues up into middle school, high school, etc., like, you're not always going to stay at the same position. So for me, I was so used to playing running back, at the time, coming into a different atmosphere at Andalusia Middle School. I was introduced to the position quarterback, and I enjoyed quarterback. It gave me another craft to work on. So from that time, I played quarterback at Andalusia Middle School for some time. That season went by. Things went by pretty fast. And then my mom decided that, hey, we're going to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. So ended up moving to Charlotte, North Carolina for a little bit of time. I was there for probably like 2 months. And man, you talking about enjoying something. I was so used to like the Montgomery atmosphere till I was able to go to an even bigger scale of a city, because North Carolina, Charlotte, it had a bit of everything. You got your malls, you got the scenery that's nice. It has all 4 seasons. So I enjoyed being there for the month that I was there. I met quite a few people, friends, and I really enjoyed being there. Sometimes I go back and I'm like, man, I wish I never would have left here. But again, the Most High God has a way of doing everything. And through my journey, I was able to learn so many different people. I learned different reasons for why I was in that season. But again, it's part of what made me who I am today. And I wouldn't take it back. We ended up leaving North Carolina, Charlotte, and coming back to Montgomery, Alabama. No, I'm sorry. We came back to Andalusia, Alabama. At the time, my aunt had underwent a surgery that caused her to take some time off, so we moved back so my mom could help her out with that. And at that time, I'm back in Andalusia. I'm in the 8th grade at that time, and didn't get to play football. I missed out on football, so here I was in a very focal point of my life, because around the 8th grade, I was probably like, 12, 13 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Had fun doing that. Just all around the town. Again, man, Andalusia it was a time where, small town, so you definitely got to make sure that you're not doing crazy things. But through that time, I was able to, again, grow, be time spent with my family. Around that time, I was able to get in preparation of going to the ninth grade. So at the time, we would begin working out at the high school, Andalusia High School. And again, I was known for playing quarterback, a little bit of free safety, strong safety. So every day after school, we would ride over to Andalusia High School, and we would do workouts. And I started to make a name for myself, I played quarterback, but the majority of my time was spent on defense. I would fly downhill, hit guys. I wasn't really scared to play. I wasn't scared to get my nose into stuff, man, and just make a play. I just wanted to be the best version of myself. It was, I don't know if a lot of you guys know Nico Johnson. He was a big name out of Andalusia. Went on to Alabama, the University of Alabama. Also got picked up by the Bengals at middle linebacker. Had a pretty good season, had a pretty good career. But man, at the time, he was one of the guys who, complimented me on my play style and just making plays and things like that. It definitely was a blessing to be able to be under guys like that, under individuals who could kind of like teach you the ropes and correct you, and at the same time, compliment you like, hey man, you're doing a good job here. But my time in Andalusia came to a close. Again, like I mentioned, my mom enjoyed moving, so we ended up moving back to Montgomery, Alabama, and this is where things really got interesting, and a time of my life to where I really dug in deeper and becoming closer to God, because this is where it really became challenging, because it was times where we were homeless, it was times where we were carless. And when I say that, I don't mean we were on the side of the road or anything like that. We would just be staying with a friend and a family, and at this time we were staying with a good friend and a family, closely, like family. Shell Leslie, I'm always extremely grateful for her, because she took us in and we were staying at her house for a time being. And it was a time that I really seek God, a time where I was grinding so hard to be a better version of myself in preparations to playing football and bringing it all together, man, because it was really hard having to experience the things that I experienced in that time. Because again, man, my mom was busting her butt to make sure that me and my brother had what we needed to have. That was food on the table. And just really for me to submit myself to God, man, because, man, everything that we go through in this life is for a reason. And the biggest thing is how we respond to it. Our decision making has to be very precise. We have to pray for the spirit of discernment and God to give us revelation, because, man, there was times where I didn't know which way to go. It was times where I didn't know what was what, but through me submitting my life to God, like He directed my steps for me, man. And already growing up in a single household and not really having that reassurance, having that guidance that I needed to have, from, a male figure. I had male figures along the way, like uncles, even my dad, when he came around, we were able to start spending time with each other. But just in the household consistently getting that feedback and just, something that, I spoke about this in my last segment, for kids, for young men and young women, it's very, very important, man, that we have people pouring into our lives. We have people that's checking in on us on a daily basis, not consistency is something that's very important, especially in a teenager's life. So for me, I really didn't have as much as consistency, because things would transpire throughout my day that I didn't get to express, because mom wouldn't really understand it. She's mom, she's the nurturer. She's gonna love off of emotion, I needed that strong love that was gonna correct me, and be able to guide me in the right way. And again, I had my dad to call, or I had my uncle to call and stuff like that, but it's different. It's very different when no one's in the household to really guide you. So for me, man, I really had to learn my way on my own, and again, I wouldn't take it back for nothing in the world, because again, it made me who I am today. So that's all I want to share today. Next segment, we'll talk a little bit more about me coming back to Montgomery and my transition as far as that, going into the 9th grade and being able to come back around to my sport that I love, which is football. So, hey, good talks. I hope y'all were able to get something from today's segment. And, I hope that you guys are able to kind of like take bits and pieces of things that transpire in my life. None of us are perfect and I don't have it all figured out, but hopefully I can be a light that ignite a light or a fire that enlighten in you, or light your torch for you to allow you to grow and be able to pass that along, because the biggest thing is just being able to break the cycle, man. When we can get to the point to where we break the cycle in all aspects of life, financially, psychologically, and just really find the truth of who we are as individuals, I think that we appreciate it a whole lot more. So again, guys, it's always good hopping on and spending time with you guys and spreading my knowledge that I have for you guys. Again, I hope you receive it. My prayer is that you receive it. And again, just always give thanks, man, to the Most High, because he's always great and he makes no mistakes. Till next time, y'all, be blessed.